We need to get underway, so I do apologise. Sorry, and Councillor Templeton, I think, is going to do the karakia timatanga. Thank you, Councillor Templeton. I have apologies from Councillor James Daniels for early departure. Is that the only apology? Would someone like to move that? Moved by Pauline Cotter, seconded by Sam McDonald. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. There were no declarations of interest. Oh yes, sorry. There are two board members of Christchurch NZ for item 29 and public participation. There are no public forum presentations, no deputations by appointment, and no presentation of petitions. The next item on the agenda is supplementary reports, and I'd like to move that we resolve to include supplementary reports number 28 and 29 in the public excluded section of the meeting. Do I have a seconder? Mike Davidson. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Do I have a mover for all of the council and committee minutes to be received? Andrew Turner, seconded by Jimmy Chen. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So now we move on to Community Board monthly reports, and it's great to have everyone here. Could I start with the Waipapa Papanui Innis Community Board report to Council, please? Emma Norrish, thank you.
Kia ora koutou. We've got quite a brief report this month, so we'll whip through it. First up, we have a Part A on the agenda today, which is these palm planter boxes at Clearbrook Palms. The reason we've put this up as a Part A is because we've been working with the residents since 2014, when this first came to our attention. We've been trying to get staff on board with it and find budget, and we've hit a brick wall really, so that's why we've brought it here. We will be advocating for this in the LTP as a standalone project, but we wanted to raise it now to raise that profile because it is an OPEX issue. So that's that. I'm happy to take questions on that after. Here we've got the St Albans Community Centre, which the rebuild is well underway. It's on track for an opening early next year. We will be discussing over the next couple of weeks an opening event for it, and also about the time capsule. We're putting a new one in the wall along with the old one, which came from the previous building on the site. 10 Shirley Road, this is the site of the old Shirley Community Centre. It's got the temporary pump track there now, but we're going out to the community this week to engage over what they would like to see on the site, whether it's short-term temporary things or in the long term. So we're really looking forward to hearing what they would like for that space. We have the Sticks Living Laboratory based sort of mostly in our area. They also cut across into a couple of other wards as well. But we heard from them last week about the amazing work that they're doing. They run a number of planting programs. They work collaboratively with corporates and schools and Trees for Canterbury. Their water monitoring program, their data from that feeds into the council as well. They're part of the MPI's 1 Billion Trees initiative. They've got a site on Marshland Road and then another on Turners Road. And their predator trapping, they also partner with New Zealand Conservation Trust So that's an amazing group doing some great things and a great example of that partnership and collaboration. Oh, and the Rongoa Garden on Marshland Road as well, which is going well, and they had matariki plantings there, and they also had matariki storytelling, which was very popular. I spoke to this one last month, but we just wanted to keep it in front of you really. We had a meeting with the developer a couple of weeks ago, and he's really proactive in wanting to sort the issues as well, and he's working closely with council's traffic engineers to deal with that traffic and the concerns that the community have got there. So that's an ongoing thing. And then finally, we've got the traffic projects all around St Albans, Edgware and Maraho, which are part of the motorway downstream effects mitigation. They started in February, and they are going to start winding up from sort of now until mid-October. It's been a really stressful time for the community. There's been, I don't know if you've driven down Cranford Street much over the last couple of months, but it's just chaos. There's been a number of streets that have been closed for a long time, and residents have been feeling the pain from that. But yeah, it's great to see the end in sight, and the outcomes of it will be a more connected network and safer for when that motorway does open. And that's it from us today.
Kia ora, thank you. Do I have any questions? Oh, Aaron and then Tim.
Yeah, sympathy over those planter boxes. They've been starting to fall apart since the quakes, really, because that probably started the cracking, and then the tree continues to grow. Is there consideration to, rather than replace the box, to just lift, when the tree comes out, the box goes away, lift the tree, because they were transplanted there anyway, dig a deeper hole and drop them to ground level instead of leaving them as boxes? Because won't this repeat?
I believe that was one of the options that you've got in the report in front of you, and it was going to cost us nearly as much to remove the tree as it is to replace the box with a stronger. Yeah.
Okay.
Tim?
I guess it's more a question to the CE. I mean, that sometimes when we take, is this a subdivision or is it a car park? Or where is the? It's
The planter boxes.
Yeah.
It's a subdivision.
Yeah.
So the developer put them in. There's
Yeah.
3 of them, and it started off in 2014 that it was just the one of them that was having problems, but now the second one is on its way, and the third one will eventually do the same thing.
Because I think as a council we've got to be aware of, like when these wonderful things get handed to us.
Yeah.
And North would be a good example of the Stonehenge. When you drive into there, that's now ours. That in our design standards when working with developers, that we can, if they've just been planted into the ground with the planter box around it, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But the ratepayers are now going to be picking this up, and there must be others. So if we can just take a note of that and move forward on that, thank you.
I'll take that back, Councillor Scundrick, thank you.
Well, it's actually when they put their landscape plans in, we need to have an OPEX attached to that, and we also need to make sure that we sign them off and they're compliant, that you're not seeing trees planted in bags and these palm trees planted above ground instead of in the ground.
Yeah.
Yanni?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I've got questions, but we've got a part A on that, so we can discuss it then on that one.
I'm just almost thinking that we could just about do the part A straight afterwards, and so.
Well, can I just check on the Langdons Road traffic? I just want to be clear. Is anyone reviewing the resource consent around the traffic assessment versus what actually has happened? And what's the time frame for actually getting relief to those people that are really badly impacted by it?
Sorry, what? Say that again?
The Langdons Road, if you go back to the thing, I just wanted to see whether anyone's actually reviewing the resource consent that was issued and the traffic assessment to see how legitimate it was versus what's actually happened.
Yeah, it has been flagged with the resource consent team, and they're looking into it.
Is there a time frame for doing this?
No.
It's just because we're doing a district plan change, and if we need to put things in our district plan to kind of mitigate these sorts of issues, it seems much more sensible than having to fix it afterwards. So do you have a time frame from staff over getting resolution to?
They've just answered that question.
No time frame.
No.
Well, can we put one in, or I mean,
No, I think we've indicated that there's a significant interest in the issue. So, you know, and we've got a process for the district plan process, which is a long and detailed one. But
and this one will be coming through in our LTP as well.
we were very lucky because on your community board is the chair of the relevant committee, so I'm sure you can have his ear.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay, would someone like to move the receipt of the report? Pauline, seconded by Mike. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And we'll look. Let's just do item number 14, is it? The palm tree planter boxes at intersection of Palm Drive and the Clearbrook Palm subdivision, and noting that the recommendation of the board, noting that the recommendation of staff is that this comes through the LTP process, and that is So there are two. Yeah, I'm not of a mind of supporting the approving option 3. I think there's but I don't know whether people want to move it and second it, or whether we can just simply receive the report and note that the Waipapa Papanui Innes Community Board will include this project in its submission to the long-term plan. So I'm keen to move that resolution, but yeah, okay, Jake seconded. All right, Pauline.
Oh, well, I'll foreshadow a motion. Then I'd like to support the community board's option, that they've selected the best solution in their view, and the funding is a separate issue. So I'd like to support the community board decision to select option 3.
Yeah, we're not. Yes, I know. I thought it would be a relatively simple, straightforward process, but it's not going to be. So maybe I'll come back to the paper later on. Sorry, I just thought that people would see that this wasn't a good process to actually do a budget bid. But that's by the by. Okay, that was not a good idea. I'll move on to the Waihoro Spraden Cashmere Community Board report to Council. Carolyn Potter, thank you.
Kia ora tātou. I was really interested in the previous report where they put up their concerns. I thought that was a really good idea. I think we can do it next time. We'll annoy everyone. I'd really like it, Mike, if we could be included just in the report from your coastline committee, not because we have a vested interest, we don't, just to keep in... Yeah, you're on it. That's cool. Before we start too, I wanted to mention we had a Work Together workshop a couple of nights ago run by our governance manager, Emma Pavey, and Arahanui Grace, who was our ex-governance manager. We'd had one of these 4 years ago, and it's really good for catching up with each other and asking if we think that we're working well together and if we're doing what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. And we've identified that we probably haven't complied with our treaty obligations ever, and that we're going to introduce a karakia like you do here, which will be terrible for me and my inadequacies, but some of the people who have come to Tuesday sessions really think that they can manage it really well. And we're going to think of other things too that we can do too to uphold our Waitangi commitments. In the meantime, we've just got a couple of nice things that have happened. This is out of our ward, but was in our ward when it started. It's the rebuild of Opawa Library. And thanks to at least one other disaster in the community library rebuilds, this library was done beautifully, absolutely beautifully. I was proud to stay on the committee. It is Heathcote Central Linwood who should be reporting on it, and I hope they do. But I just wanted to say that I was very grateful for the committee for allowing me to keep my involvement in it, and for how well the library has turned out. They've got some marvellous things in it, including, for instance, titles of rooms that existed in the old library, which says reading room, and they've got a reflection of the river below and a little balcony over the river. But I'll leave it for that board to report, because it is Linwood Central's rebuild, but I was just proud to be invited to the opening and staying on the committee that helped design it. It was a great effort. Our board is particularly pleased that the cycleway is restarting again, particularly in our case, the Norwest Arc. The only thing I'd like to comment on is that one of the roads in our area has been under constant build for the last almost year, and has had the tar seal in the same place ripped up twice, and everybody of course goes, why can't they do it all at the same time? And we know why they can't, but it's going to be ripped up again, which I think will cause a bit of uproar. And so in other words, I think there'll be one street in our ward which will be underbuilt for getting on for a year and a half, 20 months. And because they're in infrastructure rebuild at the moment, and then the cycleway is going to come through. But we're delighted to have it. The Norwest Arc in particular has been delayed since 2017, and we're really thrilled that it's starting up again. We can see the advantages in our ward, and one of our suburbs, Beckenham, reckons that they've got more cyclists than any other suburb, and they can prove it. This is, actually it's Beckenham again. This is a group of people who got together in a very small reserve behind the Centaurus Road shops to repair the damage done, and these are the numbers of volunteers that turned out. The river's on the left, and on the right is the very busy Centaurus Road with the Centaurus Road shops, and they abut to the Farnley Reserve. And but it has been done beautifully. It's got lots of native plantings, but as you can see, there are some repairs taking place. And finally, this is the Innovating Streets for People projects in Beckenham and Selwyn. Both Beckenham and Selwyn came to the board to tell us the kinds of ideas that they've got for the Innovating for People's projects. This is a great idea, you know. I just wish our whole board had had more time for more involvement with it, because it has really garnered an enormous amount of community support for the issue, and it is an excellent idea. And the kids came along and talked to us about it. The kids on the right are Beckenham School, and the kids on the left are Summerfield School, to talk about respectively Selwyn and Beckenham. And the kids were remarkable in the way they presented, remarkable. And they had come up with some excellent ideas, and they had massive adult support, which you can't see there, but there were several adults in the room who are heavily involved in this issue. And the money's not great, but it garners an enormous amount of local support and interest, and I'm really grateful for it. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. I was just going to ask a question about this. And I know it's a minor issue, but about people parking over driveways. Who does enforce that?
Who's asking?
It is us.
Council.
Car parking on Moana Street, Summerfield.
Yeah.
But how do we enforce it?
You ring the you ring the traffic department, the parking, and they'll come over. And if you are parked, the car is, and Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if the car parked is stopping use of the driveway, it can be towed.
Right.
But the simple answer would be to put in those streets where there are issue is to put white lines that define the park, the driveway, and that's
Right.
what we've asked for, but I've heard nothing back.
We've had it periodically in places like St Martin's School,
Yeah.
Tim, and it does garner an enormous amount of blood pressure.
I know, and
Well, it's if people are in a hurry to get to work or whatever, they
Yeah.
can't get out,
Yeah.
it takes time to get the traffic warden there to assess the situation, and then longer to get the tow truck there, etc., because it has to be a proper process. But, you know, it can be solved. Well,
No, I agree with you, Tim.
Yeah.
I
But anyway-
think my blood pressure
Yeah.
would go sky
it was
high.
just,
Yeah.
it was a matter of interest because I just read it in the report and I thought, well, who does enforce it and
It's
how?
us,
So, but you're getting some advice from staff on what you can do. Right. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Tim?
just a couple of things with the report. If you look at the Wee Reserve, Emma, can you bring up the picture of the Wee Reserve, please? Oh, sorry. Oops. Maybe we can't. I mean, it's a really good example of what we as a council went out to look at. You know, we've got all these reserves, and this is kind of being left, but a group of locals wanted to do something, and it's a fantastic little reserve, but working with one of our staff. So that volunteer and one staff member gets a huge return for our community, but we've got to... So
We should talk about that.
So this is something that we've got to look at the long-term plan, value for money. We've set these things up and they will fail if we don't support them.
Yeah.
So they're almost at capacity. It's an outstanding initiative.
It's a great
And it's kind of like we've set ourselves up because they've taken off right across the city.
Yeah.
So it's a real change.
But also, Tim, there's the issue of the urban park rangers and their workload.
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah,
That's what I've said. There's the second initiative here, which was this streets initiative, the community streets initiative. If we can go to that one. So we're hugely lucky in our ward that and I say our ward, it's Sprayed and Cashmere, that we had two groups ready to go, and they were all set because they were really passionate about their communities and they were accepted. But this is the type of thing that NZTA Funding's brought this ahead with working with our staff. This is the type of initiative I think as a council we should be looking at throughout our city, because we're getting people to do this. The cost of this is so much cheaper than doing it the usual way. And years ago, I don't know how many of you will remember, I brought that when I was in New York, they did it in New York. So if we, in a really busy part of New York, they just took a triangle out.
Times Square.
Yeah, it wasn't Times Square.
Well, they did trial what they've ultimately done to pedestrianise.
So all they did is they
Times
painted
Square.
so there's a definition. They put planter boxes, and here people are having a coffee in the middle of these streets. It's absolutely outstanding. So these are two things we can
next
say.
time, Tim did a great job advancing the interests of Beckenham, but it would be great if the community boards had perhaps 4 more weeks to consider the issue, because we didn't have time.
It was done but our staff did an outstanding job because it was at short notice. They did an outstanding job, but I just think this initiative, if we carried this on, the value we would get with our communities for what it costs is huge. So, but our staff did a great job in a very short, and I did help with selling as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree. When you look at our strategic priorities, connected communities and active participation, that absolutely ticks every box. So, thank you. Would you like to move the receipt of the report? And seconded by Mel. Yeah, who?
David.
Oh.
Could I just further your question around parking? Last year we got 1,600 parking over driveway complaints, and we issued 1,360 infringement notices. Already this year we've had 450 and we've issued 358. So it's quite a big issue out there. So it gives you an idea of the volume. Divide that by weeks, there's...
But that's great. That percentage of charges is great.
It'd be good if we got no complaints and no people parking over driveways, but
Yeah. I think compliance is what we'd like to see.
I don't know if it's bringing us some income in there.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And could I now move to the Waikura Linwood Central Heathcote Community Board report to Council? Alexandra Davids.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me here today. Over the last month, some of the decisions that have been made under delegation within our board area. Oh, sorry, I'll start by saying I will take the report as read, and if there's any questions after of my presentation or the report, please feel free. So we have made decisions around the Bromley Old School Reserve. And that was an extension to the basketball court. So they have unfortunately been playing basketball on half court for quite a while. So this was basically just finishing a long-standing job. We had the Richmond Hill Road new footpath. There was really great communication with the community and consultation. So it was a decision that was well liked by the community. We had last time I was here, we were discussing the landscape plan for the Linwood transport area, public transport area, and that has now gone through, which is really fantastic that we can make a move on that now. And obviously we had our Strengthening Communities Fund allocations, and it's great to recognise those groups and organisations making our communities a better place. Our community board plan developments. So this is really fantastic. We'd like to say thank you to the council for actually resolving the flood issues at Moa Reserve prior to us even adopting our plan. So that was definitely a win, and we've had great feedback from the residents in that area. It's definitely helped with some of the rain that we've had. Thank you for whoever's changing my slides for me. It's very useful. So obviously in the city we have our Dirty 30, and in the east side we have east side eyesores. So we have quite a few houses that are in question on the east side. One in particular is on Worcester Street. We have massive issues with antisocial behaviour around this property, where people are squatting in it. We have feces, litter, a lot of really horrific things, and just generally antisocial behaviour. The board would love to see council working with the community to try and clean up these areas. It's been a problem for a long time, and it is bringing down the well-being and pride in the east side, which is something that is important to a lot of our residents, obviously. On to Lancaster Park. So just really keeping this in front of the council. We are looking forward to collaborating with parks and staff and the community, and we're looking forward to kicking that off very soon. So the board have so it was brought to the attention of the board, the Coastal Hazards Working Party and the makeup of that. The board would like to look at representation from affected community boards. This has been something that's been discussed at the board table, and I'm happy to take questions on that after this presentation.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'm not finished.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Sorry, I had someone talking in my ear. Sorry, I just don't.
Just on to Linwood Park and Te Pōtoetoi, the Linwood Pool. In 2018, there was a resolution from council to look at having a report to the community board around looking at integrating the park upgrade with the pool. We would love to see this happen for our community, but it will obviously save costs, and it would be great to be able to open those sites as 1. So it's just something we're keeping in front of council at the moment. So we had our principals breakfast recently, and it was an opportunity for principals to come to the board. The discussion around the pool was a big thing. We're wanting to obviously get schools using the pool in the best ways possible for their school and their local communities. There was also talk around the COVID-19 response, and massive thanks to all the teachers within our communities for their hard work. And also conversations around the tamariki and how they had coped with that. There have been some that obviously it's been a struggle, but it was really nice to hear that young people were relatively doing quite well, so a positive from that. So this was supposed to be my final slide, but I've got a really quick shout out after this one, but just a good news story to finish with in our community. So the Woolston Boxing Club hosted the 2020 South Island Novice Boxing Championships on the 15th of August. Under COVID-19 restrictions, the event had to be held as a crowdless tournament, and the club worked around this, implementing live feed and videography, which allowed the participants whānau to watch and cheer on their tamariki. The championships offered 4 categories of rounds: debut, novice, improver and open, which provided opportunity for young boxers across the South Island to gain experience in competing and to test their skills against others of the same level. The board helps fund this group through the purchasing of equipment, so it was great to see them actually being able to continue doing what they do even in a tough time of COVID. And it's not a slide, but because Carolyn, she's not here, but she did a very good job in bringing up the Opawa Library. I did bring it up at the last meeting saying that it would be opened, but it was really fantastic to see 70 people at the opening, all social distancing. And thank you, Carolyn, for the photo. But thank you.
Very good.
Done.
Now, any questions? Mel?
With the building on Worcester Street, what was that?
What was the? Is it?
And why do we still have it?
It's a
It's just a house.
There's quite a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not council owned?
No.
Right, okay.
No.
I've got Andrew, Jake and Anne and Yanni. We're keeping to 10 minutes, so just be aware.
Thanks, Alex, for the update and the presentation. Clearly some great work going on in your part of town. Now, we've got item 23, the disposal of Cecil Place, Waltham, on our agenda today. I'm going to be asking some questions of staff on that report when we get there, particularly regarding process. Yep. But can you confirm to me what knowledge the board had of this, or what involvement the board had with the disposal process? In particular, what contact there's been with the board, or what discussions took place on the matter that's in front of us today?
Right, so there has been a memo that's been to the board, but apart from that, no, there's been no other. But
so no discussion or anything of that nature?
No.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got Jake and Yanni.
Yeah, so just I've just flipped through an amendment to Joe's machine, just that we amend to basically add 2 community board members in light of the board's concern about the coastal hazards working group. So 2 community board members, one from Coastal Burwood and one from LCH, as well as a member from Coastal Residents United.
Sorry, it doesn't say that. Oh, okay. All right. No, I mean, I've got to follow a process, and we'll deal with the. Well, we actually haven't got a resolution on the table yet. So does somebody want to move that the community board report be received? I'm going to come back. It's Anne's turn to ask a question, but Yeah. And no, Sarah's moved receive the community board report, and do I have a seconder for receiving the community board report? Anne? Yeah. Okay, so that's been seconded. So, and you're moving an amendment, but I want to finish the questions, because then obviously needs to be some discussion about that with the community board chair who's here. So, Anne.
Just a quick question. I'm really impressed that you've got the principals together for a breakfast, because I know how busy they are. How often do you do that? How do you organise it? What's your focus?
We meet with them a couple of times a year. It is very hard to get them all together, and we have a lot in our area as well. So, it is a timely thing, and we have to work with what we have. But it is a really good opportunity to find out what the issues are. We find out about different roading things that are happening within their school areas. So it's a great open discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yanni?
Yeah, I was just wondering what resources the board requires to do the Lancaster Park engagement.
So, how do you mean, sorry?
Well, when we discussed it at the board, I thought we were told that we didn't have the resources at a board level to do it, and that council would need to provide the support to do the community engagement.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if we could get some clarity around that, because obviously it's an important thing to move forward.
Yeah.
But if there's not enough resource to do it, then we need to ensure that there is.
Yeah, I mean, there is a process for doing that. So, and I mean, I don't see the basis for that. But if you want to, I mean, is the community boards got that continuing on their agenda? Have they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you'll come back to us if there is an issue. With a Part A recommendation.
Yeah.
For support to do it.
Sorry?
Okay. Because that's just different than the advice we had when we discussed it at the board.
Look,
so.
I'm not giving you advice. I'm just simply saying that there is a due process, and I haven't received from the community board a request for any intervention in this matter. So it's unlike the matter that is the subject of the proposed amendment, because it was mentioned in the report itself.
We can look into that.
Have a look at the thing, but I'd take some advice from staff, because obviously they have got resources within the staff to be undertaking the engagement, and it's how the community board wraps itself into that process that seems to me to be the key to that.
Just to answer the question, it was a council resolution. The action has gone to the appropriate unit, and it is being resourced through council.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the question in relation to the amendment that is to be moved, that was raised as the last item in your report, and which was that that the board has noted the establishment of the council's coastal hazards working group. The board would like the council to consider the working group membership to include representation from the affected community boards. We have a resolution in front of us around resolving to add people to the working group, and this was a working group that was established by council as a sort of a pre-engagement working group in order to facilitate the development of a process whereby we engage with our communities over coastal hazards, which is a broad thing. It's not just around the district plan. It's around a number of issues, and they've already engaged with the Coastal Residents United group. So, I just want to understand. Perhaps, I mean, would it be all right? Because my preference would be that the working group meet and that they consider the issues, and that they perhaps even develop a a summary of the approach that they are, or what they are actually involved in, because I think that the Coastal Residents United group, there'll be no benefit of having one person on there when the group is being engaged with by the working group. So they are one of the many people with a major interest in our coastal environment and the impacts of sea level rise and things like that. So, I mean, I can just think of the Estuary Trust and people like that. You know, there's a vast number of groups. Yeah. So I'd rather that. I'm not saying that I oppose the idea. I'm just saying that because we're expanding this to include the Waimakariri District Council and ECAN, it's turning into an extremely large group, and it might not be an effective mechanism for the approach. But I'd really like you to comment on it, because I almost want this to be the subject of a consideration by the working group with some advice back to the council before we would decide to do that.
Yeah, and I totally understand that, and I understand sizes of working groups as well, and sometimes they can get a little out of control with a lot of different people on them. I know that from the community we have had obviously groups come to us and they have been concerned that they haven't had, they won't be potentially having that representation on the working group, as they are people that understand the area and have science behind them and whatnot. And this was obviously our community board talking about community board representation, but I just wanted the council to be aware that, and we are aware that there are a lot of different community groups that are kind of coming to us in different places around the coastal areas. And I think as well we need to remember that while we're talking about the Linwood Central Heathcote Community Board and Burwood Coastal, we've also got Banks Peninsula and stuff as well. So it does actually widen it up a lot more. But this is for consideration. And whether that goes to the working group, I would have thought that it would be a working group consideration.
Yeah, well, perhaps I'll foreshadow a motion then if this is unsuccessful, that because I mean the thing is that I'm reluctant to vote against it because it's a broadening of engagement and involvement. I think that the community board members I agree with, but the Coastal Community Residents Union or United is just one of the many groups, so I wouldn't want to see one group singled out. But I would really like, so my foreshadowed motion is that that the matter be referred to the Coastal Hazards Working Group for advice back to council. So that way that gives them the opportunity to consider it as a group and also to advise us as to the appropriate course of action. And as I say, the group is being extended. I don't know what the numbers are up to now. It's up to 12 now. So, but anyway, that's.
And just in regard to those numbers as well, we weren't aware of those numbers because we just not had that information back to us. So. Yeah. But
these have been recent changes about trying to. It's an iterative process, and it is not just about the coastal hazards chapter of the district plan. So, Andrew,
you mentioned the words Banks Peninsula. But they're glaringly missing from your or from the amendment that's been put forward. If this were to carry, I would be deeply concerned if the area with the biggest coastline of all were excluded.
They didn't exclude them. No. It was just Jake's wording. So, yeah.
You could have ended up with a working 50 at this rate.
Oh,
I mean,
sorry.
also Innis
You have to
Ward
add
is
Papanui Innis as well,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they cover Brooklands. I mean, where it hits the... No, I know. Look, the thing is that I'm hoping that this is, you know, we do need to resolve this. I don't like this method of bringing matters in front of the council where the community board hasn't, you know, formulated an appropriate resolution for us to consider. So I would have preferred that the community board came forward with a recommendation that had been worked through, rather than people developing, you know, amendments to a resolution to receive a report on the fly. So that's my preference, because we end up in this situation. So, but I think that I've put up a foreshadowed motion. So if the motion fails, then that motion will be put, as long as I've got a seconder for the foreshadowed motion. James Daniels, right. Okay, so, and who's the seconder for Jake's? Is it you, Yanni? And, sorry? Right, so, yeah.
Before we make any decision on Jake's amendment, I would like to get staff's advice of actually having an external member on a governance working group.
Yeah, okay. So, is it Brendan? Would you, okay, sorry, I'm sorry to do this to you, but if you could move to one side and just, or yeah, if we could just get Brendan to come to the front.
Thanks, Leanne. So just a couple of observations. The next meeting of the Coastal Hazards Working Group is tomorrow, and I think the members of the working group have heard loud and clear that what the community board is seeking, and already on the agenda for tomorrow is the matter of the additional membership from Waimakariri District Council and ECAN's involvement as well. And I'd simply observe, as the questioning has been, actually the representation is far broader than any single community board and any single grouping. And staff already, as you say, Leanne, do engage with CCRU plus a number of other stakeholder groups, and we will be engaging with the community boards. The working group is establishing the process for that engagement, not to do all of the work. So it's just at a very early stage. We've had a couple of meetings so far. We will engage further. I wonder whether it might be prudent for the working group to consider the matter of the membership and how the engagement happens with the community boards, because I simply observe that if we start to do this, then I suspect it will be far more community boards and far more representative groups, and we also need to think about how we would then do the same for Waimakariri, assuming that they are included in the program as well, and that obviously becomes a very large working group at that stage. So I wonder whether a prudent approach would be to ask the working group to consider this matter tomorrow and to report back to council.
That's what I was hoping for, which is why I foreshadow motion, but I can't not accept an amendment that's been moved and seconded. But the amendment has changed to 3 community board members, and the 3rd community board is the Banks Peninsula one.
The question wasn't asked though, answered. It was actually around bringing in a representative from a community group onto this working group, which is a governance level.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I wasn't explicit enough. It is a governance working group, and it would be, this isn't any disrespect at all to Warwick or CCRU. It would be very difficult for every other group who then also wanted to be involved, and we run the risk of elevating one group above the others, and I think that would be probably disrespectful to a wide range of other stakeholders who represent their communities outside of the relatively specific community that CCRU represents.
And I did note that the community board itself mentioned only community boards in their discussion that they had at their community board meeting, so it wasn't, there's been a subsequent approach around CCRU, but then you just make that available to one and not to everyone else. So I mean, I just think
that would
it's
undermine our engagement approach.
It absolutely would, yeah. I mean, the point is that we're engaging with the community at an early stage, and also finding out what information it is that the community needs, because there's a lot of expert advice that has to be taken into account as well. And a consideration of a range of issues that affect our coastal environment. So,
and I would just stress no decisions have been made about where we would in fact start the engagement. So
No. This is about getting the process right. Yeah.
Leanne, I'm happy to amend it to take out the Coastal Residents United group if it takes staff advice on that one. I mean, I do think they're a key group involved in this, but that's right. Well, this is our key group. We're here to fix clear emissions, not offer representation to everyone.
Is the seconder happy with that? All right. Okay. Thank you. We'll just I'll put the amendment by council. Yes. Can you just wait till I do this? We've got an amendment that's been moved and seconded. So, is there any debate, Jake?
Just really quickly, this is a motion that has come from the community board. It's an amendment put up by me, but it was obviously in response to the chair's desire to see greater community representation. I think if we don't get this process right from the beginning, it's doomed to failure at the end. And there's been a real loud chorus of this isn't a representative group, and I'm sure the working group with the best of intentions, and they will engage with a large group of stakeholder interests, but representation and engagement are different, and you can't just allow the working group to discuss this matter tomorrow. You actually have to fix the representation problem to fix the buy-in issue. And I think the three community boards we've got there are the three by far and away most represented in terms of this issue.
Mike?
Thank you. I'm absolutely struggling to understand how you think this working group is not representative of the communities that are affected. There's 8 councillors on this working group. 6 of them actually represent communities that are affected by coastal hazards. They're all community board members. And I don't know how you don't realise that you sit on a community board member as a community board member as a councillor. To do this, you're making a group much larger than it needs to be. It is hard enough to schedule a working group that consists of 12. If you want to put that suddenly up to around 15, it's going to be impossible to have meetings. This is actually a really important process, and everyone realise how important it is to get right. It's at the very initial stage of it, and we're actually making sure we formulate it and get it right so we get community engagement and buy-in done correctly. And we will be making sure the community boards are aware. But you have, from your community board, 2 community board members already on it. Coastal Burwood already has 2 community board members already on it. Papanui Innes has 2, Banks Peninsula has 1, and Spade and Cashmere has 1. So you just need to actually have a look at the makeup and actually realise there's proper representation on this working group.
Yanni, Andrew?
I think to say that community boards are represented isn't actually true. If community boards could appoint representatives to that working party, then that would be the case. But councillors have a different function than community board members, and while we're sworn on to community boards, if the community board hasn't actually appointed us to that group, we're not there representing the community board. So I just think we need to be clear about that. But fundamentally, I think this is a really important issue. It's got massive implications for the city. And I personally think having the ability for the community boards to appoint representatives is actually a good thing. I can see it only helping rather than hindering. So I'm supportive of it, especially because the request has been made and we have been a council that has said that we do support community boards.
Sarah? Oh, sorry, Andrew.
Thank you. I appreciate the request and I appreciate the spirit of it. And I am pleased to see Banks Peninsula included there in case this does carry. A working group of 12 people is large already. And, this working group needs to be effective. And one of the things it needs to be effective in is planning engagement with communities and engaging with communities and engaging well with the community boards and including the community boards as it does that. But whether appointing community board members to it is the right way to do that, I think is open to question, given the size of the working group already and the nature of the work that they're doing and the key areas to be targeted for engagement first have not yet been decided. So what I would hate would be, for example, for us to appoint a Banks Peninsula community board member to that group and then there be no areas on Banks Peninsula that were signalled for early engagement. Certainly the one member of the Banks Peninsula Community Board who already sits on the working group will be an effective representative of Banks Peninsula and will report back to the Banks Peninsula Community Board very effectively. And if I think that that's no longer working, I'll be the first person to say so, but I expect that it will. So I appreciate the spirit of the amendment that's been put forward, and I certainly think there's some conversation we need to have in that spirit around how we effectively include the community boards and include the communities in every bit of the work that we do, but whether expanding the size of the working group to more than the already relatively large 12, I question that approach. So I'm pleased to see Banks Peninsula in there in case this goes through, but I'm not going to be supporting this amendment today.
Sorry, who was... Sarah, yeah.
Kia ora, thank you. Coastal hazards are one of the biggest and most difficult issues that the city is going to face. Engagement was poor during the original district planning process and trust has been really low. This new process has only just started and we're trying really, really hard to do it right this time. We need to build relationships and trust in the community and in the community boards. And community boards and community representatives will be engaged really, really soon. We have learned a lot from previous processes and I'm really looking forward to the working group and staff bringing the new process to both the boards and the wider community really soon. At that point, when other councillors, community board members and the community have seen the process that we're proposing, I think it's at that point that rather than before they've seen it, that decisions could be made or recommendations could be made to change it. But I think it does a disservice to our communities to start bagging the process before people have seen it. And I think that if we bag the process early, we lose the trust in our communities. And I think that that's a real risk at this point. I'm looking forward to making sure that we do it right. I want to do it with the community. And we had 2 really, really good meetings with CCRU before this paper even came to council. They were happy with the terms of reference. We tweaked a couple of things based on their feedback and they were happy with the membership at that time.
Thank you. James?
Kia ora. Look, I was approached on this issue as to whether I would support such a notion, but I didn't realise that we were going to be having to make a decision on a motion today. I thought that the working party might consider it in its meeting, as other members of the party have said. And I expressed my, I didn't take umbrage, but I did express my disappointment that councillors are not considered members of the community board. I'm going to take offence on that, on a personal level anyway. So I'm also disappointed that we're going through this process in this forum. It's wrong to be developing a motion like that. I feel like we're being sideswiped a little bit on this. So while I'm open to the notion I cannot support that motion.
Yeah, I want to speak in favour of the foreshadowed motion in my name, that, and it really backs up what James Daniels has just said, which is that the Coastal Hazards Working Group has been established. It's had a couple of meetings. The council signed it off, and it is appropriate that the question of membership is considered by the working group. We set up the working group for a purpose, and that was to get ahead of the significant amount of engagement that has to take place when we're dealing with our coastal environments and the uncertainties that come with the future in relation to climate change and the impacts that that will have on our coastal environment. So we have a process that we have to develop cautiously and carefully. We saw the impacts of not getting it right in the past. I would like to take the advice of the Coastal Hazards Working Group, deeply considering the process that they want to use to engage people fully in this process. And if that means increasing the membership to include the 3 community boards, then I'll be all for it. But I just want to hear what the working group has to say before I make that call. So, so on that note, I will put the amendment, amendment number 2, to add the 3 community board members. So it's probably better that you do a roll call, because I think it's going to be a split decision.
Councillor Templeton? No. Councillor McClellan?
Yes.
Councillor McDonald?
Yes.
Councillor Johansson?
Yes.
Councillor Galloway? No. Councillor Daniels?
No.
Councillor Coker?
Yes.
Councillor Chen?
No.
The Mayor?
No.
Councillor Skendrick?
No.
Councillor Major?
Yeah.
Councillor Kewen?
Yes.
Councillor Goff?
No.
Councillor Davidson?
No.
Councillor Cotter?
No.
Councillor Chu? No. Councillor Turner?
No.
Five for the motion, 11 against the motion and 1 abstention.
I declare that lost, and I'll put the foreshadowed motion that the matter of increased membership, including representation from community boards of the Coastal Hazards Working Group, be referred back to the working group to report back to council. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. And I'll put the amended motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you. Thank you for the debate.
The next one is Te Pātika o Rakai Hotu, Banks Peninsula Community Board report.
Sorry.
Sorry? What?
Oh, sorry, my apologies. You only had a motion.
What?
Sorry? I was just trying to check. So we've received that, we've done that resolution, but the community board report, have we received that? Oh, sorry, that wasn't clear. I had a
Sorry,
point
I said there was an amended, I put the amended motion. I put the motion as amended. I did. I said that separately. So we're done with that report. Thank you. I wasn't aware that you had sent through by email another amendment. I wasn't aware of that.
It's not an amendment. It was to raise in the debate.
It says proposed amendment, Councillor Johansson.
That was to refer to in receiving the report.
Sorry?
It was to refer to when we received the report, even for any discussion on the report.
Right. I'll hand over to you guys. Thank you.
Good morning. We take that the report of the Banks Peninsula Community Board has been read, and should anyone have any questions at the end of that, I'll refer that to Tyrone. Just a few updates. One is the Strengthening Community Grants. We've just allocated $169,250 to our community groups. A total of 25 different community organisations have benefited from our Strengthening Community Grants. Recently in the Discretionary Response Fund, we have granted $3,616 to a community defibrillator based in Rapiki.
Which was essentially a request from the Runaka in Ngāti Wheke, which is, we're very big on engagement with our local Runaka, so it was a really good request from them. It was the only the nearest defibrillator was in Littleton, so it's good to have one in Rapaki because a lot of people come and use the beach there, because it is a wonderful beach.
Now we've changed delegations. With the board has set up a board chair and community governance manager delegation to approve youth development fund applications. This will save costs associated with the full funding reports, still allow board members to have their say in this decision, and improve timelines in their response to the applicants.
Just to try and improve efficiencies. And also as part of what we're really big on at the moment with our board is engaging with our local police. So we've got police based in Littleton and in Ngākaroa. We had Sergeant Franco Loveridge from Littleton Police come and visit us, and also Senior Constable Tim Johnson as well, and just to talk about local issues and just to really just up the level of engagement, just sort of voice community concerns, and they were there to listen and to tell us about the challenges of policing out on the peninsula. I think some of the really big issues are get a lot of boy races out on the peninsula. That's for sure. It's some of the councillors will probably be aware that it's one of the favourite tracks of the boy racer around the peninsula and up through Gibby's Pass. They've probably done it themselves from time to time. But there are some challenges there. It's fair to say that the police are concentrating on Beeley Ave, but we'd really like to see a bit more focus on the peninsula routes for boy races, mainly because of the speeds that they get up to. It's very hard to get to 150 k's an hour going down Beeley Ave, but very easy out on the peninsula with some tricky roads. So really good to have the police along to see us. One of the major concerns. Well, not concerns, one of the things that both sets of police from both Akaroa and Littleton were talking about was the need to perhaps get some cameras on some of the access points into both of those townships. Akaroa is really one way in, one way out. Littleton's there are 3 ways in and out. So in terms of burglaries and that sort of stuff, it's probably would be quite useful to have some cameras at some key points there to observe people going in and out of the towns. Just a really good engagement, and we're just looking to keep it up. So back to you, Tori.
Sounds good. And the last one is a thanks come through from the community. The Little River community have acknowledged and thanked the council the new footpath on Western Valley Road in Little River. As you can see there, on a day like today, you'd quite often be pushed into the grass area and into the mud when it's raining. So having a footpath for children to get to and from school has made a huge improvement. And as you see there, fine sunny weekend, scooters and everything are being well used. So no, thanks for coming back to the council for that one. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? Tim, and then Anne.
Thank you. Look, totally get what you're saying with regards to the boy races. That's been an issue in our ward for a very long time along the top of the hills, and just kind of scraping along within your ward as well. So also with regards to the speed cameras, which are really, or just crime prevention cameras up in that area, which is really, really hard. But I think maybe that's something we should have a combined board meeting over, because we've had some real tragedy up there, and we just want to, and I'm specifically talking about but you've got it right across, so it'd be really good to have look at that, So it's really hard for the police, and totally understand where they're coming from. And with mobile phones, just takes one boy racer to spot something, and they all know, and they all.
Yeah, I mean, kids want to have fun.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we want them to do it safely, and that's what it really comes down to, because there are some tricky roads in those, in both of our ward areas.
We want them to get home to their far now, and that's, Yeah,
and
totally
you're right, telling me there have been some terrible things happening on Summit Road and stuff.
Yep.
Cheers.
Kia ora, thank you. Troy, just wondering where you're at with the speed limit outside the marae along that stretch. Has there anything happened with that?
Nothing has come forward that we're aware of. That is an NZTA, but I do know that, as well as council, we are looking at speed reviews. And so last I heard from our council staff, roading team, is that a lot of areas around the peninsula are looking at lowering speed limits just to go and coincide with the nature of the road. But how NZTA decide to do that on the state highway, we're still being left out of. We, like I say, they're doing the speed review through council process, but NZTA is still not open with the communication with the board anyway regarding that. So it is just down the road from the school, 100k zone, and it is can be very busy, as we saw at the marae. So still a concern for the community, but like I say, NZTA, the community board and the community would like to have open conversations with them about that.
But given that we had, a raft of roads last year, we lowered the speed limits on roads all across the peninsula. We'd like to see some consistency for a start, and sort of left hand, right hand talking to one another. But that road you're talking about, Wairewa, presumably, it's shocking,
So I know the council staff are coming back with a second round of speed review very shortly, so we will then raise that issue, because obviously state highway is not our jurisdiction. However, we would like to have some input into that.
We'd like to support you on the other state highway ones, because the Little River one's an obvious one, and that was raised with us when we went to the marae. So
it was.
Would you like to move it, Andrew?
Yes, please.
Tim Scandrett. Andrew.
Just very briefly, to make a comment, item 3 in the report refers to the joint statement of the Akaro Treated Wastewater Reuse Options Working Party, and I'd just like to amplify the acknowledgement of that group. When it was put together 3.5 years ago, it was felt that this group would need to meet on a small number of occasions and issue one joint statement. Over 20 meetings later, over 3.5 years later, and 2 joint statements later, the group has now completed its work, and I think it's appropriate that I once again acknowledge Penny Carnaby as the independent chair of that group, who has done an amazing job in corralling the work and bringing the very wide range of very strongly held opinions together across that group. The joint statement will have value to the hearings panel when it considers the matter shortly. But I'd just like to acknowledge Penny and in fact all of the community members on that working party who gave of their time and who got very deeply involved in technical aspects of the work and in making sure that they were representing their communities well over a far longer period of time and in a far more involved way than anybody ever expected. And I think it's been a great example of how we can engage with communities early on a difficult and divisive issue that may well lead us to a far better outcome than we would otherwise have got to. So just an acknowledgement there.
That's it.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next one is Waitai Coastal Bird Community Board. Kelly Barber.
Good morning, everybody. I'm joined today by Chris Turner, governance extraordinaire.
We know Chris.
First thing I want to focus on is just some of the community board decisions under delegation. Just before I start that, I just want to thank you for addressing the Coastal Hazards Working Group and issues around that. I mean, we certainly appreciate and have quite an interest in coastal and that. So I just want to focus on the Strengthening Communities Fund. 5 of the 6 of us were new to this process in our group, and I just want to congratulate staff on the huge amount of work they did to wrangle the applicants, and it's a really rigorous process. We also want to thank the council for the additional funding this year, $358,000 for our 2 wards. The thing that struck me is that these organisations are right at the heart of the community, and it's a really good place to put money. And that organisations like Actis, Aranui Community Trust and the New Brighton Project, and there are so many more, do amazing work in the community. And I guess it recognises, these funds recognise that not all the important work is done, that our council does, is done in town. And the fund sort of recognises and supports that all these fantastic organisations do wonderful things for our community, and that people really appreciate it too. We got a lot of feedback about how grateful various groups were for the funding, so yeah, a really positive thing. Moving right along. Summer with Neighbours. Planning's underway for events to be held over 5 months, October through to the end of March. Focus is on reconnecting neighbours with each other after the COVID lockdown. The Walking Festival, usually held September, October in the school holidays, has been postponed till April school holidays in 21. Of course, if you have the need to walk in the short term, you might want to take a trip around New Brighton, visit the pier, the cafes, the foreshore, and the hot pools. It's good to hear that I think Jake made an effort to go there, although he was rejected for his shirt colour, was it? It was. But again, I'd encourage you all to head out there and have a look. It is amazing, and we're very appreciative of it. Okay, moving on to Biketober, the Festival of Cycling. For those of you that don't know, and I'm sure you all do, that it's in its 4th year. It's a month-long festival, promotes bike-related events and cycling for recreation, transport, health and well-being. Our community board are personally going to get involved. I think the New Brighton Residents Association have a day like June 11th, a Sunday. Most of us are going to be out there attending it. Councillor Daniels and Major both have electric bikes, and we'll have a bit of a race, go on a journey, which Councillor Major will probably win, since his electric bike goes some 70 kilometres an hour, which is yeah, I know, it's an outrageous speed. And yeah, I actually tore the cartilage in my knee getting on his bike during the lockdown. So there you go. Yeah, so Biketober I think is a really positive event, and there are so many great areas to see around our 2 wards. So moving right along to the mural art installation in New Brighton. This is a really unique mural art installation. The project was coordinated by the New Brighton Project, who are a group that we fund, and they employed a local artist, Jeremy Sauzier, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, who captured the shadows of 172 locals by tracing their outlines against the wall in the New Brighton pedestrian mall. I think it's a fantastic piece of artwork, and it is quite catching. There's some sponsors I want to mention: Resine, Vision Surveillance, Glenn and Robbie at ATF South Island Temporary Fencing, Mark and the team at Dyers Road Hirepool, and CCC Enliven Places Project Fund, and the Graffiti Program Community Support Unit, who all contributed, so thank you for that. So last and not least is we had a recent bus trip around the ward to 2 of the roads. Grateful to Councillor Mike Davidson for coming along and joining us with that, Chair of the Transport Committee, and Richard Osborne, Head of Transport at the Council, and Tristram. Yeah, we're really passionate about the roads in the east and seeing them improved, and it was good to see them firsthand. I guess it's a bit of a signal that you're going to be hearing more about the approach roads into New Brighton and through our ward. We really think that it's incredibly important for the future of our area that these are given due attention. So I do believe that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining the background to our Bright Town. I was out in New Brighton the other day, and it was, and I noticed it because it's such an outstanding feature. So, well done. Yeah. Any questions, Jimmy?
One question, 5.2.1, your community board have undertaken those community capacity research project.
Yeah.
Your scope is in your two wards.
Yes.
Okay, who take the lead to do this one? It's from community or from
council staff?
Yeah, it's actually a citywide project, so it's it's a project that's been going on across the city, but actually because of COVID it's kind of gone on hold for now. So during the lockdown there was quite a bit of work going on with it, but just due to resourcing. So it should be a paragraph that's in most of the board reports, just reporting back on the work that's been done.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? James, would you like to move it? Seconded by Phil. Mike, did you have a...
I just want to make a quick comment, and I just want to thank you for taking us out on that bus trip around the roads. It was good to have a look at the condition, but I think one of the things that really stuck out for me was Sutton Place, which is sort of trapped in the red zone, with no way to get to it unless you go through the red zone itself. And I think we need to look at exactly how we're going to manage that moving forward, because I just don't think it's fair for that very small community.
It needs another entranceway. Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it is a wee bit problematic.
It's a lot problematic.
Sure we'll come up with a solution.
But it does. It needs another road. It needs another entranceway, because where it sits, it's just it isn't easy to get to without going through the red zone itself. Well, you can't get to it. They put a footpath in, but not a road. Yeah, and for a little group of residents, that they're sort of trapped in the.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be good to have a resolution for that. So good. It's good to see that you've got that one. Good. All right. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Waimairo, Fendleton Waimairi Herwood Community Board, David Cartwright and Bridget Williams. Yes.
Good morning all. I note that time has moving fast, and I'm aware you've got other things starting at 11:30, so we'll be as quick as we can. So key board decisions, obviously we've been involved in the Bishopdale Skate Park renewal, 2 local playgrounds, strengthening community funds, 47 organisations receiving funds. Probably the big one on the screen though is actually Celebrate Bishopdale, provided COVID alert levels are under control. This is a key community project which is led by the very capable staff at the service centre, led by Marianne and Bronwyn and Margaret, etc. So shout out to them, they do a great job. It'd be great to see everybody there. I think actually the mayor might have even been there having selfies last year, or that might have been Culture Galore actually.
It was Culture Galore, yeah.
Right.
We had a massive selfie with Sam and Aaron and everyone else.
Elmwood Park. So this was created quite a lot of media interest and concern within our community, but thankfully there was a great outcome put together. The Cricket Club were able to put forward the suggestion of soft netting, and I'd actually have to compliment Katie McRae on her patience and her professionalism on dealing with everybody from the community and coming to a great outcome there.
Good.
Yeah, so the next one is Kapatoe Dwelling and Cottage. So earthquake repairs and strengthening work has now been completed at the Old School Masters House and Cobb Cottage on Main North Road in Belfast. So the board is planning to hold an open day to celebrate the restoration work once COVID-19 restrictions are removed. And the photos so far look absolutely fantastic, so it's great to have this restored. And then the other thing also is a really exciting scheme that has been running for a while, but this is Computers to the Community scheme. So this scheme is managed by the Fendalton Maimari Harewood Community Governance Team and involves the allocation of ex-CCC desktop and laptop computers to not-for-profit community groups across the city. So for the past few months, we've obviously seen a spike in requests as more people are working from home due to COVID. The application form is available on the council's website or by contacting the team at Fendalton. But the latest recipient of computers is a trust which works with people who have suffered from brain injury. So accessing these computers means that they can contribute to deliver their services without using their limited resources to replace old computers. So if you know of anyone in need, then please get in touch. It's a fantastic scheme.
And lastly, it's a pity actually that Caroline Potter's not here. I know this is an interest which is close to her heart. Around having accessible facilities, and just a thank you to the Endowment Fund for allowing us to spend some money at the Burnside Bowling Club. And again, if COVID plays its part, we'll have the Disabled World Bowls Championships in the city next year. Happy to take any questions.
Very good. Questions?
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, Sam will move, and seconded by Aaron. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Was that James? Sorry. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Waipuna Horsewall Hornby Riccarton Community Board report.
Kia ora, good morning. Morning. We won't hold you up too much. I will take it that the report has been read, and we've got my deputy Andre here who's pushing the buttons, and we'll go over our little PowerPoint presentation, and then just a couple of other things I'd like to touch on, and then we'll be in your hands for questions, Madam Mayor. Right, Awatea Road, 2 Part A's. They were pretty straightforward, so I don't think there's any issues with those. Strengthening communities funds. We'd just like to really say thank you to the council for the extra funds that you've made available to us, and that 403,000 and 39 community groups. And I just ask you to have a look at those community groups in our report, and just a big thank you from our board and to all of those community groups as well. And we have spent quite a bit of discretionary response funds as well post-COVID, so that's all good. And we've done some more playground renewal in Harrington Park. So Harrington Park is a bit of a jewel in the crown of Riccarton. And anyway, it's got some new additional playground equipment. It's a very, very well used and appreciated park. So that's quite exciting. And a big thanks to staff as well for the way they've put together this the Activity Services Guide for Older Adults. It's an absolutely brilliant document, and it's just a bit shame post-COVID that you can't actually take them into the doctor's surgeries and physiotherapists and stuff to have available for those people to actually pick up and take home. So as soon as the restrictions come off, hopefully that's what we'll do, and it's just a very, very powerful tool for the older in our community. Not only for the elderly, it's for the families of the elderly as well, to actually suggest, try this, try that. And the community centre library courtyard. So that's a program that was taken over, instigated by the community, and just like to really say a big appreciation to the Hornby Community Trust for the work that they do in our community. And they've turned that little bit of a courtyard, which was very, very derelict, into an absolute jewel of the crown of Hornby. And I got a phone call from a gentleman who was going for walks. This was at the time when this was first talked about. And he said, there's nowhere for me to go and sit down and have a quiet spell when I'm going on my walks around Hornby. And anyway, I said that this work was going to be done. So he went and had a look at it and got interested in it and helped the team on this project. So it's probably made a big difference to that one person's life and give them an opportunity. And the other thing I'd like to say here on this is that significant note has been made of this area in relation to our previous councillor and deputy mayor, the lovely late Leslie Keast. So that's going to be a bit of a shrine for Leslie and her memories going into the future. And of course, we've just not far from there is the Leslie Keast place. We've got a street named after her in that area as well. So that's really, really good. That's it. The only other thing I just wanted to say is in our report we mentioned the post office or post shop going into our new community centre, Riccarton Community Centre, and it's just with that extra traffic, we're looking at a bit of a parking crisis in that area because there are lots of couriers and people. You know, it's just. We've got a community centre, we've got our community board staff, so boardroom operating from that area, and just a bit of a heads up that it's with the post shop moving in there, we have got some parking issues, so probably inappropriate for me to raise it at this time, but it just prompted me to bring that up. Yep.
Thank you. Right.
Hopefully we've got a lot of questions.
Jimmy Chen's going to move it and Anne Galloway is going to second it. So are there any questions?
Briefly.
You can briefly ask a question.
Thank you, because I attended the Hornby community and library, the courtyard, and also speak a few words, particularly acknowledge all the former the councillor and deputy mayor, the Leslie Keast. She was kind of the legend in our community. Many years welcome, respected by the wider community. The other one is on that day they have 80 invited the people turn out, particularly those different agencies as well as the community groups. This the courtyard is very, very crucial for a community. It's there's a community and vegetable garden. They can gather together to plant those vegetable, and also a good opportunity for them to share, to networking. That's very crucial. Yeah. The other one is because in August the chair on behalf of community board and also the Hornby High School particularly raised those issues in front of school. But as a local councillor, I working together with the three council staff on behalf of council. We have very good and positive meeting with the principal and student rep, and also after meeting all the action and also outcome have been sent to the school principal, also including those primary school principal. They are very satisfied. We are in response quickly. They are very appreciate the council we do that. Just want to share with everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for your good question.
Sorry, that wasn't. It was my mistake. It wasn't a question. He was leading the debate. So on that note, I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so it's 11:11, so I don't propose that we go back to palm tree planter boxes. At this stage, we will adjourn the meeting and it will reconvene at 11:30 as the Urban Development and Transport Committee meeting. Thank you.